Here is the most important lesson to learn early on in business and any time in life when things are not going to plan. Your worth is eternal and nothing can touch it. Nothing changes it. Nothing you do or don't do, nothing your business does or doesn't do, nothing the people in your life do or don't do can change your worth. If you can just sit in that truth for a few minutes, it can really change everything. This is Burning Brightly, a podcast for Christian moms who are feeling called to build a business and share their light with the world. I'm Bonnie Wiscombe, a life coach, mom, and entrepreneur, and I'm honored to be your guide as you face this business building adventure full of highs, lows, and everything in between. This is where we help each other find the courage to shine. Hey friend, welcome back to Burning Brightly. This week we're going to be talking about how to ensure that our business is not too personal, that we're remembering it's actually not personal, it's business. There's a reason that that phrase exists. But first, let's back up for a minute and talk about why we women are special in the business space. And it's because we approach our business in a very different manner, generally speaking, than the men do. In fact, one of the reasons I've noticed that women are sometimes turned off by the idea of business is because of how men build businesses. I'm going to speak in generalities here for a minute, but as a rule, men build businesses in a way that suits their own personality, which is, again, generally very different than how women operate. And so we see men building businesses in this way, and many of us are turned off by it because it doesn't appeal to our own female way of doing things. It just doesn't speak to our hearts in the way that we need as women. And if we're going to build a business, we want to do it in a way that speaks to what feels good to us. That looks like through loving people, through nurturing relationships, through wanting to do good and being concerned about taking advantage of people or overcharging or doing something that doesn't feel good to us. We struggle when we think that we have to be cutthroat in business, and we want to build our businesses just like we build our lives, which is intentionally and with God at the forefront. Again, this is not to knock men. There are many wonderful entrepreneur men who do this same thing, but we just have very different personalities. So when we see the business world in the way that we do, sometimes we are turned off by it. That is why it is natural and normal for a lot of women to just pour our hearts and souls into our businesses. And then we wonder why we're taking it so hard when things don't go well. We put everything we have into it and we work and we slave and we stress over it, and then it doesn't turn out the way we anticipate and we are just heartbroken. It's also hard for many of us to imagine building a business that becomes successful and then selling it. We can't really wrap our mind around the idea of not being personally involved in all of our business. In other words, we mix up the business and the personal. So there is some danger in this. We start to believe sometimes that our business is an extension of us, that if our business is not going well, there's something wrong with us. We think that business failure means personal failure. If our business doesn't succeed, doesn't meet the goals and the metrics that we have for it, then there is something wrong with us or what we're doing. We wonder what's wrong with us personally when things don't turn out well in our business, and we go cry in our closets when people reject us because our business has become too personal. So one of the first things we can do very early on is separate mentally and emotionally from our businesses. Clearly separate them from who we are personally early on. One way that the business world encourages people to do this is financially. If you've read Profit First or any financial book about business, you will learn that one of the first things you should do is separate your personal and your business accounts, right? This is a very critical thing. In fact, the government will get after you if you don't do this, but we forget that we also have to do this mentally and emotionally in order to keep ourselves sane. And side note, I've noticed that we moms actually kind of struggle with this in other areas of our lives as well. When it comes to our marriages or our homes or our kids, we like to take sometimes way too much responsibility for these things, even when certain things are out of our control. So in reality, we actually don't have much control over what our husbands do or over what our homes look like. We have some control, but not all of it, or what our kids choose to do with their lives. And the sooner we learn this, the sooner we can be at peace with the people and the things around us being not in alignment with what we want. Because, spoiler alert, a lot of the times they're not going to be in alignment with what we want. This is just life. This is just humanity. We each do the best we can with our own lives, and then we let everyone else live the lives they have, and we have to be okay with it, even when it's not what we want. And our business is the same way. Now, let me just put you at ease. There is a lot we can control. We know this. We control how we show up every day in our business. We control what we build, the structure of our business, the structure of our offers. We control how often to offer these things, what to price it at. We control who we work with. We can turn people down if it's not in alignment with what we want. But there is also so much that we cannot choose in our business and we cannot control. We can't control how many people like us. And we can't always control how many people are on our email list or how many people are our social media followers. We can't always directly control who buys from us or whether or not they leave us good reviews or if people come back as repeat customers or clients. Again, a lot of what we do impacts this, but we can't directly control the actions of others. So how are we going to show up when our business does not turn out the way we expected? Because shocker, it's not going to turn out the way we expected. Sometimes it's going to turn out way better, and sometimes it's going to turn out a little bit worse than we expected. Regardless, we have to manage our expectations, and we can do that by separating our business from who we are personally. So here is the most important lesson to learn early on in business and any time in life when things are not going to plan. Your worth is eternal, and nothing can touch it. Nothing changes it. Nothing you do or don't do, nothing your business does or doesn't do, nothing the people in your life do or don't do can change your worth. If you can just sit in that truth for a few minutes, it can really change everything. And I think most of us Christian women understand that truth at a fundamental level, but sometimes we don't always believe it. We want to believe it, and we believe it's true for our spouses and for our children and for the other people we love in our life. But for us ourselves, it's a little bit hard to understand. Sometimes we think, no, I'm just not productive enough. I'd be a little bit more worthy if I were a little more productive. Or I wasn't very good at loving the people around me this week. So I think I'd be a little bit better in some way if I could just love the people around me. That's just not true. You are beautifully and wonderfully made by the creator of the universe. And he is able to do miracles in both your life and your business. They just very often don't come when we want them to or in the way that we anticipate. Very often they are way greater, but sometimes we have to wait for them and sometimes we have to be patient. Life just doesn't pan out like we expected. And when that happens, what then? What do we do at that point? So let's talk for just a minute about a few of the ways to extricate some of that personal from your business so you don't have to crash and feel horrible every time you have a setback. So you don't have to make it mean something about you or your worth when things don't pan out as expected. So I like to think of things that are personal as things that are a part of us, like our bodies or our personalities. It's not easy to extricate my personality from me. This is just me. Sometimes there are parts of my personality that I can tweak a little bit, right? If I'm a little bit too loud and boisterous in maybe situations where I should be a little bit more reserved, I can tweak that a little bit. Or if I'm sometimes kind of rude or gossipy, that's not a portion of my personality that is in line with who I want to be. So I can tweak that a little bit. My body, same thing. I can exercise and eat better to try to make it healthier, but I can't actually remove myself from my body. That would be death. So our bodies, our personalities, these are all intrinsically part of us. Relationships are also very personal. Even though we can only control half of the equation, our half of that relationship, it's still a very personal thing. And connecting with God, that's a relationship as well, right? That is very, very personal. But your business is not. It's not a part of you in any way, shape, or form. If it feels like it is, we might have some work to do. If your business feels too personal, you're going to notice that it starts to get in the way of success and or healthy failure. I should just say and. There will be failure in your business, but if it doesn't feel healthy, if it feels like it drags you down and it makes you miserable and it makes you second guess your life choices, it might not be healthy failure, the type that helps us to learn. So instead of business being a part of us, like our arm or our love of dancing, it is simply a science experiment. You guys have heard me talk about this before. I feel really strongly that we understand that it's just something we try. Sometimes I like to think of it as a math equation as well, but since there's right and wrong answers in math, I prefer science experiment. That feels a lot more in alignment with what I'm trying to build. I am just throwing chemicals together and I'm hoping to not blow myself up. I am just trying to figure out the best way to get the results that I'm hoping to get. So just like a science experiment, we contribute some inputs, right? We will gather the materials and we will measure them out and we will add them in certain measurements. Maybe we'll change up the timing a little bit. And then the business creates the outputs. right? So when it comes to our business, that might look like we're going to try this freebie to build our list. And then we're going to try emailing our list in this way or this way. Maybe we'll try once a month and then we'll try doing it once a week. And then we'll try offering something for sale to our email list every month. And then we'll try it a little more often, right? So we're putting these inputs, just trying to see what happens, just trying to see if we get the results that we want. And then the business kind of spits out these outputs. Now, obviously we are creating the business as we go, but again, we don't know what our audience wants yet. We won't know until we've offered a certain amount of things and we've grown it to a certain point, and then we can kind of get some more consistent results. Now, this can be very hard to acknowledge when you are a solopreneur, when it's just you in charge of everything, because it feels very personal. You write an email and nobody reads it and you think, I'm a terrible writer. Nobody liked my subject line. Nobody's paying attention, right? Your brain comes up with these stories that makes that result mean there's something wrong with you. And what we know about the brain tells us that it does this to protect us. It's not doing this to be a bully. Our brain is saying, what you're doing is painful and uncomfortable. You need to stop. It feels dangerous, right? Putting out an email that nobody reads prompts the brain to tell us stories that will hopefully get us to stop doing those things so we don't have to feel uncomfortable. Totally normal and expected from the brain. It feels personal. It feels like our fault when things go wrong or don't go according to plan. And so we gotta watch those stories because our brain is going to try to pull us back and keep us from continuing to feel that discomfort. But again, it's all just an experiment. It's all just for fun. Sometimes it can help us to understand this experiment perspective if we think about other things in life that are like experiments. So I came up with a list for you guys. Recipes. Recipes are very literally science experiments, chemical experiments. We are throwing ingredients together and heating them up and mixing them in a certain way and hopefully creating a result that is delicious and nutritious and our picky 5-year-old will eat, right? Recipes, great experiments. Building a home is an experiment. I'm sure you've had a house at some point that drove you crazy, like the floor plan was really annoying and you tried to set up your furniture in a way that worked, or you tried to decorate it in a way that you loved and it always kind of drove you crazy, or maybe you just wish you had an extra bathroom that would fit the way your family lives a little bit better, right? So anytime we're shopping for a home or decorating a home or trying to put it together in a way that is conducive to our lifestyle, that's an experiment. We're just trying things out. There's nothing wrong with it. Sometimes we take this personally too, right? Like, oh, my house is a mess. That means there's something wrong with me. Or I have to pick just the right shade of green for this wall color, or it's not going to tie together. But it's all just an experiment. It's all just something to try. I also look at parenting as an experiment. This is kind of a high stakes experiment because we are trying so hard to do, quote unquote, the right thing. And I personally do believe that there are right and wrong ways to parent in many instances, but not in all instances. I personally don't want to yell at my kids. I don't want to lose control. I don't want to treat them in a way that's going to harm them long term. But most of what I do is just trial and error. For example, my kids have a once a week school program they're at today, and one of my kids claimed she was sick. Now, you public schoolers out there are probably like, yeah, you fell for the classic, I'm so sick, I got to stay home from school thing. Yeah, I did. Okay, I did. I don't have a lot of experience with this. And she was very clearly not sick and she just wanted to watch TV all day. And now I'm trying to figure out, okay, what would be an adequate consequence for this kid so she doesn't want to stay home next time and just waste time watching TV, right? So we're just trying things out. And each kid is their own science experiment because each one has different personalities and different strengths and different weaknesses. So that is a wild and crazy ride. What about education? Your own education or also the education of your kids? Also an experiment. Maybe you put your kid in the local public school and you realize that teacher did not do so well. Let's try a private school, or let's try this charter school, or let's try homeschooling, or let's just try something else until we hit a solution that works well. Or our own education. If you've been to college or trade school or anything else that has helped you get ahead educationally, you may have found ways that worked for you and ways that didn't work, topics that you loved, other subjects you didn't love. So many different ways to get a great education. And then finally, another science experiment I find myself participating in a lot is my hobbies. What am I going to try out lately? Am I going to do something physical? Am I going to do something crafty or DIY related? What sort of hobby will motivate me to enjoy life a little bit more or to develop myself in some way? So again, all of these are just experiments. Sometimes they go so well and we're like, wow, I can't believe that this turned out the way it did. I made an amazing recipe, or look at this kid, he's making great choices, or wow, I found this hobby that I just am obsessed with and love so much. And sometimes these experiments go terribly wrong. according to our perspective, right? We think that was a failure. Why did I do it like that? Lesson learned. Next time we're probably going to change things up a little bit, but they're all just experiments. Hopefully, when these experiments go quote unquote wrong, not according to plan, we don't make it mean that we're terrible in some way. We don't say, oh, this was a crappy recipe, so I'm a terrible cook. Or my house is messy, so I'm a terrible homemaker. Or I'm a terrible parent. Or I'm a terrible learner or a crafter. I don't know. Whatever you try is just a learning experiment. And this is what business is as well. We're just learning one step at a time. And the people who make tons of money and are very clearly a success in every sense of the word in their business does not mean that they're better than you in any way. They've just been learning. Maybe they've been learning longer. Maybe they've implemented the lessons a little bit more quickly. Maybe they've had some background education or experience that has helped them to learn better in some way, but we're all learning as business owners. Now, in addition to understanding that it's a science experiment, we also have to understand that our businesses have identities of their own. Have you thought of that? How do we know this is true? Because businesses can be bought and sold. And it's actually illegal to sell part of yourself, like a body part. So that's how you know your business is not part of you, because it can be bought and sold. You can actually build your business till it's profitable and sell it to someone else. Crazy, right? You can create a business that operates completely independent of you. It happens every day. People do this all the time. They create a business, they get it to make money, and then they step out. And they either run it, from the sidelines, or they sell it to someone else and just make a profit off of it. Now, many of us who are listening today will not go down that path because we feel so passionately about being an integral part of our businesses. So we don't want to let it go to somebody else because it's kind of our passion project, right? We love it so much. But some of us will. Some of us will create maybe an e-commerce business or some sort of manufacturing business or something that creates value for people and makes money, and we'll sell it to someone else. It's pretty cool. But for those of us who are using like our personal talents and gifts to create offers and are changing lives that way, our businesses wouldn't work great without us, so that's not an option for many of us. But just remember, this business is not you, even if you are a very key part of it. It's just an experiment we've created with some things that we are good at. Okay, now I want to give you a list of ways you can tell if you're making your business too personal. You might think, maybe this is me. How can I tell for sure? So here are some ways to know. Number one, you are constantly worried about the success of your business. If it keeps you up at night, if you're stressing regularly about it, you might be making it a little bit too personal. Number two, you get your feelings hurt when people don't buy, or when they critique your work, or they make mean comments online. Now, this is hard to overcome. I personally think I'm pretty separate from my business. I don't take it very personally, but I still get my feelings hurt sometimes when people are mean to me online. But remember, if it's about your business at all, you can just say, oh, that person doesn't like my business. That's too bad. You could extricate yourself from it, okay? Number three, you find your opinion of yourself wavering depending on how business is going. So if business is up, you think highly of yourself. And if business is down, you think poorly of yourself. That means you're a little bit too close to the business. You need to extricate yourself personally from it. Number four, you're constantly looking towards a specific goal so you can feel good about yourself or about your business. I slip into this very often. Whatever the goal is that I'm working on, I find myself not being able to relax or really enjoy my business until I've hit that goal. And then I hit the goal and I make another one. It's the gap in the gain all over again. It makes me crazy. I'm trying to learn how to get out of this trap. But if you are constantly looking towards that goal and not allowing yourself to feel good about your business until you meet it, might be a little bit too personal. And then finally, number five, the idea of your business failing, i.e. not meeting your goals, is horrifying to you. It would feel like a personal failure. It would feel like something was wrong with you. So do you see how these five tendencies, these five traps, really identify that we've got ourselves wrapped up into our business just a little bit too much? If we're able to extricate ourselves a little bit from that, we're going to find so much more peace and joy in building our business. In other words, if your business's outcome is really closely tied to your emotions, you're a little bit too personally connected to it. So ask yourself this, what stories are in there? We've all got stories swirling, right? We've got these soundtracks, as John Acuff says, swirling in our heads about our business. What is it? Remember, a business and its success or failure, whether it makes money or not, is just a circumstance. So what story are you telling about your business's success or failure that is creating these intense emotions? How can we take some pressure off the future of your business? How can we relax and embrace it even when things go wrong? How can we laugh about it? How can we get curious instead of getting upset or mad about it? And one of my favorite ways to pull myself out personally from my business is to ask myself what I would think or feel if it were someone else's business in this instance. So let me give you an example. Let's say I'm running some Facebook ads and I'm not getting the leads I wanted, or they're way too expensive. Instead of thinking, gosh, I did something wrong, or these ads are garbage, or nobody wants to see them, what if I could shift my perspective and ask myself what I would tell a friend who is experiencing this? I probably wouldn't tell her, wow, your ads are garbage and nobody wants what you have. No, that would be mean and make me a bad friend. Instead, I would shift into a space of curiosity. Interesting. Could we test some different ones? You're doing some static images. Could we try some videos? Could we try running it to different audiences? What else could we try? Or do we want to keep running ads if they're this expensive? Can we try a different way to get some leads for our business? So shifting into that perspective of what would I say or think or feel if it were someone else's business can sometimes help us to alleviate some of that pressure. And remember, putting large amounts of pressure on your business to make money when it is currently not is a surefire way to make it way too personal and frankly to kill your business. This is so hard to accept because many of us start our businesses to make money, but businesses like gardens take a long time to nurture and grow and to yield fruit. So is there another way you could get some money? Is there another way that you could supplement your income to take the pressure off this business so that you can be a little bit more calm and rational to experiment? If someone goes into a medical lab desperately needing a cure for cancer today, how effective are they going to be in that lab? Not very. They're going to be so stressed by the pressure of needing the solution today, they're probably not going to find it. It's going to take time. And the less pressure we put on it, the easier it is to get there. In short, if our business does not feel fun, we're making it too personal. Our businesses are supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be something we enjoy. How can we get the fun back into it? By looking at it like a science experiment that is just for fun and not something that is inexorably tied to who we are. I hope that helps you enjoy your business more, friends. I love you so much. I'll talk to you next week. Are you ready to start or grow your dream business? Click the link in the show notes to download the free starter guide to building a business or to schedule a free coaching call with me. And if you loved this episode, don't forget to leave a review and share it with a friend who might be feeling the call to burn a little brighter.